Welcoming back Ina Fried.
All right, thanks for bearing with me. Before we get to our last demo, I wanted to thank a few people that made today happen. First of all of you for being here, all the folks on the live stream for watching, thank you. Thank you to the Altman building team. Really quickly, because we did get this question, no relation to Sam. It's actually the now defunct B. Altman department store. And its only tech tie is that in the Marvelous Miss Maisel show, she takes a job at what was then B. Altman. So in case you were wondering, I looked it up for you, Wikipedia, thank you. I want to thank our sponsors, IBM and Meta, for their support. We couldn't do this without them. Our catering team, our production vendor, Pro Show, and of course, our amazing Axios events team. Thank you. Don't forget to stick around after this. We're going to have some bites, beverages. I'll be down there. It'll be great. Look forward to catching up, hearing what you thought. And if you aren't subscribed to our newsletter, the debates, the discussions that you've heard, we really try and have that every day. I think it's a real luxury that I get to write about AI every day and pick one topic and say, here's something we should be thinking about. If there's stuff you think we should be talking about that we're not, drop me a note. I'm just ina@axios.com. If you don't get the newsletter, you just go to aiplus.axios.com. We'll get you hooked up. And now for our closing segment, I want to introduce our next guest who heads up the company Gecko Robotics. Their robots are not the sort of humanoid type robots. They're not the Boston Dynamics dogs that you usually think of. They are used to gather data in places that are hard to reach for humans, dogs, robot dogs. Think like a loose wheel on a train or creating digital twins to gather data to fix damage in real time. Here to explain where AI fits into this is Jake Loosararian, the CEO and co-founder of Gecko Robotics. Jake. So we're not talking, when people think robots these days, for better or worse, there's a lot of humanoid robots out there. But it seems to me that's a bit of a trap in the sense of the whole point of building a robot is you can build it to the task you want to do. That's kind of what you've done. We're going to look at a couple photos, and you're going to tell us what that picture is and what's wrong with it. So if we can cue these two photos. All right, so here we have a bus crash.
Yeah, so the headquarters of Gecko Robotics is in Pittsburgh. So this is actually the Fern Hollow Bridge that collapsed before President Biden showed up that day. So a big topic was infrastructure. And you're right. Yeah, our robots don't dance to Cardi B, or if they do, it's not really that interesting. So like this like idea of robotics that can do really cool things, that's what got me fascinated with the robotics sector. But then I started looking deeper, trying to understand what are the unique things that robots can do to actually impact real world problems. Something like this, for example, is a real world problem. But it doesn't necessarily have like the draw to the tech community or other roboticists or folks in software or AI. It's hard to solve a problem when you don't like hear a lot about it or aren't affected by it. But these kinds of moments are happening at a much faster and more increased rate. Critical infrastructure like this bridge, they're failing.
And we have a big problem. A lot of these bridges, things like that, really old. We know they're past their design life, but we don't know which ones are at risk. And that's what you helped show. If we can cue the next photo, part of the challenge is to inspect bridges, pipes, wells, tunnels. It typically requires this, which is time-consuming, expensive, dangerous. What can we do with robotics that we can't do by sending a human up there?
Great question. So I call this Joe. He's on a rope, and he's probably suffering from a pretty intense wedgie because he's been up there for a while. This was the image that captured my attention about 10 or 11 years ago. I started the company out of college dorm. I got a chance as an intellectual engineer to go to a power plant nearby where I went to college in Western Pennsylvania. And I got to see that a power plant was shut down and failed because of a pressure vessel explosion. So, blackouts and brownouts have been occurring at a 2x rate for the past 5 years. Why it's happening is that we increase the demand on old infrastructure that was built in the Cold War, and it's beginning to fail, especially when loads increase. And the best way to stop it from happening is sending folks like this up with tools that are really similar to medical tools. Ultrasonics is what this individual is using to test the structural integrity of a really important piece of infrastructure. And this person at the power plant I went to had died the year before doing this job. It's very dangerous, and unfortunately, you're just not really able to capture a lot of information and data about the physical world, and this is a problem. It's really great to solve and use technology and artificial intelligence to do incredible things, but if you don't actually have the underlying data sets, and the first order data sets in particular, then you have a hard time solving problems like real problems. Things like how do you ensure that the infrastructure that we all depend on every day is going to be there for us for the next 10, 20, 30 years, especially as you begin to talk about transitioning to renewable energy sources. It's really important to make sure that you're reliable.
And so what the robots can do is they can collect more data more often and help you not just see visible damage, but kind of get a sense for when things are going to go wrong. So, there's limited budgets. If we could build every new bridge tomorrow, we still couldn't afford it. We still wouldn't have enough people to build it. We have to prioritize. And basically, your robots help us do that, right? I'm not sure.
That's
do we
right.
have a video? I can't remember if we have a
We
video.
We do. And I think it's important, so some numbers for you. Corrosion costs us about like 3.6% of global GDP every year. We're at like a D grade as it relates to our infrastructure. It's about a $4.5 trillion problem to get us like to a B. And I think like these are all like really scary numbers, and there's like 17,000 bridges in New York and only 6 are not in need of immediate repair. This is like a very doomsday scenario, but what I'm trying to communicate is that you need information and data to begin to solve, one, the prioritization of these problems, but two, begin to understand how do you not just maintain, but then build smarter pieces of infrastructure into the future. So in college, I built a wall climbing robot to go out and gather information and data to then predict when things were going to fail this power plant.
Where are your robots in use today, and how many are out there?
So after 10 years of gathering data on over 500,000 of the world's most critical assets, we've been able to not just build robotics like this and leverage drones and walking dog robots and fixed sensors. We've been able to collate all of that into a centralized software called Cantilever that manages and is a source of truth for the biggest energy companies, whether it's oil and gas or power, the Air Force and the Navy, both domestic and allied, the manufacturing sector, the public infrastructure sector on dams and bridges. We have penetrated into a bunch of different sectors that all suffer from similar problems in the physical domain. And that aggregation of all this information has actually allowed for us to make some pretty interesting conclusions as it relates to what will fail and when, but also how do you ensure that you can get more out of the infrastructure to solve for the critical problems for a customer. Like, how do you increase production of energy while also decreasing emissions levels? That's a literal problem that we're solving for some of the biggest companies in the world.
And if we have that video, let's play it. And then, rather than just talking about it, I think it'd be fun to see the robot in action, don't you guys? All right, so if we have the video, let's play it. If not, it sounds like we don't. No problem. You don't need a video. We've got this live. And I'm going to control it with an Xbox controller. Is that right?
Yeah, let's not overcomplicate things.
All right, now I'm terrible at video games, but one of the things that's nice about this is this isn't just like it's not a humanoid robot. This isn't the world's fastest robot. This isn't going to do a race. But it is pretty cool the way it can move.
Yeah, it is. It's going to connect to Bluetooth right now. So right now it's searching for the pad right now. So while that's happening, what I'll describe for you, and actually, let me hand it over to Will to connect it. So what we're going to do is you'll see it kind of looks weird. So I'll describe it.
This is Will. Everyone say hi to Will.
Hey, Will. Good job, Will.
So this is the robot. It looks
so just like a CAT scan on a bot, when you're doing when you're going in for a health scan. You have a suite of ultrasonics up here that are basically doing a sonogram of the physical structure. And while it's doing that, it's using cameras, it's using LiDARs, it has IMU on board, and we're not just gathering the information, the data.
I see lights.
About the structure. We're actually mapping out and creating a digital twin. Because as you know, you want to be able to create a historical record that can extend the useful life of the critical infrastructure, that can help it perform better. And if you can map on a digital twin and the health data, then you can begin to pull in more sources of information. And so this is what was really interesting with the optimization problems we're beginning to solve. So, so we're gathering a couple different kinds of information from the ground level, and then we port that into the centralized software, which is Cantilever. So we'll get that moving for you in a quick second here.
And if it doesn't happen, I mean, the important point here is we don't have to run these robots. They are, but what it's doing is it's giving us more confidence that that old bridge that we're going over won't collapse on us. Well,
that's exactly right.
I'll have to save for next time playing with the controller.
Sounds
but
good.
Thank you so much, Jake.